Someone got it? Cool. That's good. All right, good evening, everyone. Feel like a game show host or something holding on to this mic, but I'm going to try and keep the sound up. If you're watching online, hello. We're going to try this one again. I know there's like a 15-second delay or so if you're watching online, but if you got a question, comment, or want to answer a question, put it in the comment section. We have George hopped on Facebook, and we'll try and get your comment or question read out loud here. All right, AJ started, we'll get right into it. AJ started with this concept, and no screen right here in front. AJ started with this idea, what, how, and why, as an introduction and talking about Jesus' living, just his everyday life. So we're going to take a look at the what right now, and we're going to look at some of the how, and end with the why, but then we'll get into more detail the next coming week, specified on the how. Let's kind of introduce the idea. All right, so question, what is the first commandment that God gives to human beings? Anyone remember? Without looking it up on Google or in the Bible, what is the first commandment God gives to all mankind? What? Don't eat from the tree. That's shot number one. That's close. Any other takers? First commandment. Alrighty, I won't pull it out from you. This is the first one. That's one that you don't think of. God creates man and woman in his own image, and he says, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, and goes on to say, subdue it. So the first commandment is that image bearers of God are to make more image bearers of God. Same commandment with Noah and his kids after the flood. He tells them, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Now we'll see how many people were paying attention this last Sunday. What is the last commandment God gives in the flesh? Any takers on that one? What's the last thing you can think of that's recorded? The last commandment that Jesus gives, God in the flesh, is what we famously so talked about Sunday morning. All authority in heaven and on earth is given to me. Go, therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. And behold, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. So the very first commandment God gives mankind, pre-fall, all that stuff, multiply, go make more image bearers of God. And the last commandment in the flesh, Jesus says, go make more image bearers of me. Go make disciples of all nations. Now, right out the get-go, before we get into these classes, remember this is not our own work or our own glory. We are the agents by which God will work his will. Now, Jesus' everyday living, teaching and living intertwined, but his living was creating and teaching and making disciples, as well as obviously proclaiming or evangelizing that the kingdom had come. Now, generally here at our church, we like to talk about biblical authority. You see so many problems that happen when people stray away and just pick what they want instead of seeing actually what God's will is. Well, here's a verse that straight up uses the word authority. Jesus says, here's my authority. It's in heaven, it's on earth. Now go do this. Authority. There it is. It's what we talk about so much. And yet, most of the time, hope you appreciate the drawing, most of the time, this is what evangelism looks like. Now, I know it's a little different right now for everyone because of the virus, trying to be respectful of people's health and whatnot. But usually, you got the evangelist, and it's like, I know someone, you should talk to the evangelist. I know someone, and he hits up each person he possibly can. And then everyone goes and they go join church, and then there's another pew sitter, and then the evangelist tries to go hit someone else, grabs another pew sitter, and they come in and join if they're so fortunate. So group discussion right now. I want you to take a couple minutes, whether the person next to you, if you don't have anyone next to you, you can turn around, believe it or not, in your pews, and talk with the people around you to answer this question And I want to get an answer from each section, so the pressure's really on for that section over there since there's 4 of you. But each section, I at least want to get one answer as to why we struggle so much with sharing the gospel. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes. Go ahead and talk about it with people around you. And you can talk a lot louder than that. It's fine. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and give a comment if you would like. All right, like 10-second warning, let you wrap up. Alrighty, what were some thoughts as to why it's really a broad question? Why is it so difficult to evangelize? We'll start with the crowded group number 1 over here. Who's got one? Yeah, it's your group. You were in this section. This section 1, we'll do section 1, 2, and 3, and bonus sections Facebook if you're so bold to answer. All right, why is it difficult? Nate, you got?
No, start in the back.
Start in the back?
We're going to take up the whole class period.
I said people are afraid of judgment by others.
All right, people are afraid of judgment, rejection, that type idea. Anything else in this section? All right, for the second time, we'll go to this. Oh, you do got something? Yeah.
That we're not fit.
Okay, we don't want to seem hypocritical. Fair enough. People could point out. And social acceptance, because if you're biting against the cultural grain, you can be called a bigot or a hater. All right, middle section, section number 2. What do you got? Why do we find it tough to share the gospel? All right, afraid you'll get asked a question that you just don't know. That's a good one. One other one at all?
We don't live it.
We don't live it.
People don't care. I'm not talking about us. They don't care.
And the cult, okay?
Like, you can tell them straight up what the Bible says. They'll smile at you and say, good deal. On the fly.
So we got we don't live it, and the other one is that the culture says cool, don't care, moved away. All right, any narrative for section 3? Any idea over there?
Well, you could have let us go first.
They said they wish you could have gone first. All the ideas have been taken. Fair enough.
Well, a couple of things that came out were, one, it's sometimes intimidating, just fear.
Okay.
The other thing is what somebody else already said. What if you don't know the answer? And what if you don't respond in a way that they think is the right way and you push them further?
All right.
Do more harm than good.
Afraid to do more harm than good. It's intimidating. You might not know the answer. Give a poor response. It does more damage than good. Nothing on Facebook? Facebook, you're going to have to step it up. I don't know who's watching. Come on. We're waiting. All right. So generally we're saying we're afraid of judgment. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be hypocritical, to look like a bigot. A question that we don't know, we don't feel prepared, we don't live it, or our culture is generally less and less godly, they just don't care. It can be intimidating, especially if you know them. Again, the idea of not feeling prepared, having no answer, or thinking that we're inadequate and might do a poor job. And that sounds about right when it comes to the fears I could think of when it comes to being afraid to share the good news. One last thought. One last thought. Fear of burning bridges, especially with those you care about, like family members. That's a good one. And it happens. That's sometimes a cost. So we're emphasizing that there can be cut ties with close friends and family because of that. Part of the reason I think there might be inadequacy in some of our own studies and our own lack, or maybe we haven't emphasized it enough, Jesus teaches this principle in Luke 6:40. He says that a disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone, when he is fully trained, will be like his teacher. So Jesus, in his life and his teaching, is going to show that a first basic step to sharing the gospel would be, of course, to be trained or to have some kind of knowledge, whether that be studying the Word or seeing what that actually looks like in real life. Now, I took this picture from a book I have. It's kind of tough for you to see. Let me explain what you're looking at there on the screen. So the far left side is the years, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Then you got the evangelists. And then you got a group of, we'll call them disciple makers. Okay, let's say according to this chart, the evangelist brings in one per day. You got one guy, he's out on the streets all the time, and every single day he's able to get one person, by the grace of God, to obey the gospel. One per day. That's pretty good. Versus the disciple maker who just spends a year training and teaching 2 people. And then the next year, those 2 people find and evangelize, convert, and train those 2 people. And very quickly, the number goes 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and over time, that number, dwarfs after 16 years what the one evangelist can do, converting one person every single day. Not only is this a more convenient, not only convenient, a better way to do it, but this is also the more biblical way to go about it. You see this general idea where one guy teaches the next, they go teach the next. We see replication of people being able to teach in different ways, in different situations, where it's not just the 1 or 2 guys or girls who are, the evangelists. Everyone's involved. You especially see that in the book of Acts. So what does Jesus want? Jesus wants disciples who will make disciples. Because the error I had that I made before is that we convert someone, they become a pew sitter, that's the end of the game. Now the preacher or that person who's avid about evangelizing moves on. It's not what we want to do. So some time ago, I gave a sermon about discipleship. We'll see who's paying attention to that. Can anyone tell me what a disciple is? We talk about it all the time. Someone's got to know it. If you know it, yell it out loud. No one knows it. Got people laughing. Even Nate?
Follower.
It's a follower of Jesus. Very simple. A follower, a learner, someone who follows. I put up there a follower or a student of someone. So it's not just academic. It's changing life and living like Jesus lived. Now, this commandment, it is given to the 11 apostles. Why would we say that this commandment is for all Christians for all time? Why is it not just to the apostles? Or is it just to the apostles? And we don't have to worry about it. What'd you say? It's for all of us? So we're saying it's all for us because we're supposed to tell people about Jesus. One last thought.
He says make disciples. You're made disciples.
So we've appropriately pointed out that Matthew doesn't use the word apostle to describe the work. That's a special designation of authority, sent one, as God, or speaking for God. But discipleship or discipling identifies what they're to do. And of course, we see that replicated over and over again in the New Testament. As Nate said, evangelism is not extra credit. And one way or another, in your different capabilities and ways to do it, everyone is called to proclaim the good news. It is fundamental to the Christian life. And the goal of evangelism, it's not just to get to the baptistry. Baptism is not the end goal when it comes to disciple making. Okay, that's the conversion. But too many times I've seen in my very young life, someone's baptized, they're in, and then they're left alone, and it's like, we'll figure it out. When Jesus called the 12 for a very specific work, it's not a perfect ratio, but Jesus calls the 12, it doesn't say, that's it, you've been called, congrats, you're part of Team Jesus now, and that's it. He teaches them along the way. That's also in Matthew 28, right? Not only is it baptizing them in the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but it's teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. And sometimes, unfortunately, we get the idea that, well, they got to think this about the Holy Spirit, and they got to think this about church funds, and then they got to think about this over here before then they can really be a Christian. We want the conversion to Christ. Then we'll teach them to observe everything that God has commanded. We don't want to do that backwards. That would be unbiblical. So yes, we need training, as Jesus says, training to some degree. What that looks like, we'll talk about that soon enough. You see that idea of Paul. Paul says, imitate me, not because I'm a good guy, imitate me. Why? Because I imitate Christ. We want to be able to have someone older than us who can disciple us, teach us, or at the time where we feel prepared to be able to help someone, whether that's a question in their spiritual life, whatever it may be, we all help disciple each other. That's the idea. We're not just waiting around for Jesus to come back. Jesus didn't call us to a life of sanitation, did he? It wasn't just a life to be called to sit here, be an attendee, and just don't sin and hope when you come back you don't get in trouble. The whole thing we just read about and discussed is Jesus called us to be his disciple. That's what we're called to do. That's the question we got to answer at this church, in any church, wherever we are, is do we have a culture? Do we have a culture of disciple making? Now, I just got here. I don't know all the ins and outs of here. And this is not a personal attack on you. It's not a personal attack on anyone in this church, but the American church as a whole, including my life and my own guilt life, is the American church does not meet the Great Commission. It just doesn't. Now, individuals, again, like I said, I just showed up here. I'm sure, 100% sure, there's some of you who are out there mission-minded and are at it. But as a whole, it's something that I'm looking at myself too, included that, am I really focused that this is the center of my life and it's not just something else that I just do? Because that's where we want to be with living like Jesus. James says, be doers of the word, not hearers only. We hear the word Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, probably on YouTube, probably in your own time of study. We hear the word a lot. And Jesus says, so much has been given, much will be expected. So what do you think of when you hear the word evangelism? Couple thoughts. Immediately, what do you think of? It could be, you might think of something silly, I don't know what it is, but you hear the word evangelism, what do you think? What's your expectation? What's your thought? To teach. Evangelism, here teach. What else? Door knocking. That's one I thought of too. I heard evangelism, I heard door knocking. Might run into some Mormons. And anyone else? Evangelism. Okay, door knocking, teaching. I thought of those. I was talking Sunday. Nate?
Knowledge-based.
What?
Knowledge-based, Curious. I think that was actually one. That might be a question.
Nate's saying knowledge-based. You're thinking about that. I might not have an answer to the question. That's got to have to be knowledge-based. Might think mission trips, going overseas, going down into Mexico or wherever that may be. Okay, so Jesus' life, of course, is full of sharing the good news, evangelism. Jesus' life also, of course, is training, kind of that disciple-making idea. Let's go ahead and take a look at Matthew chapter 10. Turn over to Matthew chapter 10. We're going to read the first 4 verses. So chapter 28 Matthew is known as, of course, the Great Commission. This is kind of like some people call it the limited commission. Now, out the gate, I'm going to say this. This is not a perfect one-to-one ratio. Remember, we'll identify these are the apostles, but the principles are definitely everlasting. Okay, so I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. And Jesus called to him his 12 disciples and gave them authority. Sounds familiar, like Matthew 28. He gives them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out, cure every disease. Verse 2, the names of the 12 apostles are these: Simon, who's called Peter, Andrew's brother, James the son of Zebedee, John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. Now, of course, we don't have the miracles and stuff we have today. That was to identify Jesus' apostles and who they were then. But the same idea of authority given to us and authority given to the apostles is to go commission and preach. Now think about the 12. The 12 apostles. Someone give me, what is Peter known for? Someone give me an attribute about Peter. What's Peter known for? What would you say Peter's character quality is? Who's got one? Outspoken. I literally have that written out verbatim. Outspoken, big talker, loud. Some people probably here, who thinks they would like Peter? You like Peter personally? Okay? I'm in the like Peter crowd. Who thinks you'd be annoyed and be like, shut your mouth, you're talking all the time? Anyone else in that camp? You might feel that way. Yeah, that's how George feels about me. George, he's like, that's enough talking. James and John, remember them? The sons of thunder. They had quite the attitude. They're like, hey, these people just rejected you, Jesus. Do you want us to burn the city to the ground? That's what they say. Would you like that? And he's like, no. Thomas talked about him Sunday. Maybe you relate as the doubter. Matthew. It's funny to me in the biblical account that you get sinners, and then their own identification as the tax collectors. Wow, they really hated the tax collectors as sinners and tax collectors. No one liked him. Who would hate Matthew in the group? Who would hate Matthew, the tax collector? Yeah? What?
It's an IRS.
The IRS would be tough to work with. That's kind of like what Matthew's doing. Is there an apostle out there who would hate Matthew from a personal, social standpoint you can think of? Aha, Simon the Zealot. They had guerrilla warfare tactics. They wanted to take down the Roman Empire physically. Okay? Do you think Jesus picked those guys on purpose? Yes. It was not some accident. He was very intentional. So we need to embrace the diversity we have in the body, of course. I'm sure people were annoyed with Peter. I'm sure Peter was like, guys, come on, step up and be a leader. Like, everyone has to work those kinks out. But we need to embrace that because we're all going to be in the process of going out and doing the Great Commission. I kind of picture someone, like we said already, working for the IRS, a Trump supporter, a never-Trumper, a libertarian. You know, all these people, and Jesus is like, you, and they all come together, and they're like, I can't believe you support Trump. I can't believe this person likes Trump. That's what it would be like today. Can you imagine? Some of you have some very strong feelings about people like that, and imagine getting in a group where someone thought the opposite of you. You'd be like, nah, I don't know about this person. I don't know. And yet we're called the message over and over and over and over and over again. Old and New Testament, especially New, is unity. Is unity. Let's read verses 5 and 6. We're going to try and see if we get to verse 8. Got a lot of questions in between there. Okay, verse 5 of chapter 10. So the 12 Jesus sends out. He instructs them, go nowhere among the Gentiles, enter no town of the Samaritans, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Okay, what stands out to you in this commission? 2 short verses. What's odd to you in these 2 verses? Don't go to the Gentiles. Weird. Why, don't they need saved? Why are we not going to the Gentiles? Any other comments? Okay, so don't go to the Gentiles. That's one I've written down that stands up that's very odd. He still says go, but he doesn't say go to Rome. Some of them will later do that. He doesn't say go to Samaria, which, by the way, is pretty close by. If you look at a map, I stopped using this whole thing up here. Ooh. Here we go. There's the map. So if you look at the map up here, they're around the Sea of Galilee, which is mixed between Jew and Gentile, and they're told to specify, only go to the house of Israel. And Samaria is not like it's a far trip or anything. It is right there. But why do you suppose? Now, there are deeper theological reasons why. That's not the answer I'm looking for right now. There's a theological reason as to why. But what's the practical reason as to why Jesus, in this training ground, would show them and then tell them to go teach here amongst the people of Israel? You think of a practical reason why. I feel like I've stumped everyone. I see a lot of shaking heads. I'm not so sure where we're going here. Same language, same culture. One could say it was their comfort zone, and you were comfortable most where? You wear slippers to church? No, you wear slippers at home. Okay, that's the idea I'm thinking at here. Now, sharing the gospel at home, is that easier than me sharing the gospel in Michigan or Russia? Or is it harder for me to share the gospel at my home? What's your opinion on that? Easier to share it with strangers or people you know? No one has an opinion.
They know you.
All right? Eddie's saying easier to preach or teach people you know because they understand your character and they know where you're coming from, and you don't want to take the opposite idea? No? I kind of go back and forth. I think it would be easier because I know Nate or whoever it may be. But also at the same time, we mentioned some of the fears at the get-go of rejection. So it kind of depends on your personality. I guess the plus side is if I talk to so-and-so, she'll never see me again if she thinks I'm a total moron and is like, forget that guy. Well, I don't have to have that embarrassment again. But it's a good teaching ground. So Jesus is teaching here to go. This is a strange sentence, but Jesus is saying to go where we already are. Yes, the apostles would go far, far away. But he says, let's start at home. Now, he doesn't just say, live there. He says, go and do this. It's mission-minded. We say that with our overseas trips, right? But we also should be mission-minded right here at home. They're going to go live in people's homes. They're going to be in synagogues, eat meals, friends' house, social gatherings, the marketplace, work, farming, fishing, and they're still called wherever they go to have this in their mindset, no matter what I'm doing in my everyday life, to be mission-minded to what? To proclaim the gospel, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. This is a lifestyle. So we got to think about that with our own lives. You see this personally in Acts. They're scattered after Stephen's killed, and it casually mentions this, that those who were scattered in Acts 8, they go about preaching the word. Not just the apostles, not just the preachers. And then later, a few chapters later, they go into the area of Antioch, and I don't think this is a missionary journey, but remember it says those who are scattered because of the persecution, same group of people, and they're speaking the word to everyone except the Jews, but there are some of them who, coming to Antioch, spoke to the Hellenists as well, preaching Jesus. So they realized, okay, this is where we live. It's not like this is a missionary journey like of Paul's or Peter's or whatever. They saw people of different races, ethnicities, and said, well, we've been taught, Jesus said to teach everyone, and they just play it out in their regular, everyday to-day life, mission-minded. Think about our daily life. We need to consider our daily life, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you're at work, whatever it is. You immediately, all of you individually, have a million different people that you can think of that you are interacting with. Are we being as intentional as Jesus was with the people around him? Now let's say you got no time to evangelize. You got no time. I can understand that, especially you got a family and whatnot, and you're busy. Well, I'm going to suggest that evangelism isn't just the door-knocking idea. It could be a good opportunity, but evangelism, what we're seeing in Jesus' life and what he's teaching his people around him, is a lifestyle. He's saying to go exactly where you are in your life and preach to those people around you. Now we want to get to the aspect where we were wondering, well, that might be kind of scary. Let's look at verses 7 and 8 in Matthew chapter 10. Okay, Jesus says here in verse 7, proclaim as you go, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, cast out demons, you receive without paying, give without pay. Now, if you're able to do any of those miraculous events, let me know. It'd be pretty cool. But like I said, we don't have that today. But I'll get on that concept in just a second. So verse 7, what does your Bible say? Who here has preach in verse 7? No one that says preach in verse 7? Okay, that's more like it. Who's got proclaim? Who's got proclaim? Okay. I think I like proclaim a little bit better, but they're kind of synonyms for each other. And we're proclaiming the kingdom. We see that first preached and Acts. So looking for opportunities. Just arriving up here in Texas, I noticed very quickly, you throw a rock, you're going to hit a church building here. It's everywhere. Kendall's work down on 66. I'm driving. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 churches in half a mile, all on top of each other, including a church that says a church without religion. Don't know how that's possible, but they're all right on top of each other. And Kendall's talked about personally in her own work that I talk to these people, and they're like, yeah, I go to church, and whether that's their language or that they're getting drunk or someone's living with someone, everyone here in Lubbock, Texas seems to be a Christian just about. I feel like we went door knocking. Are you a Christian? I did that. I said the prayer. I was baptized. Whatever they think it is, it's done. So there is a certain challenge of where we are, whether that may be religiously conservative or liberal. But I want to focus on that word proclaim, because we picture in our mind, what if I don't have the answer? We saw that. How much knowledge am I supposed to have? That word proclaim. Okay, all it's saying, we read that, all proclaim is saying is to declare publicly. Now, does proclaim mean to convince someone? No. It's to tell them. Now, I'm not saying we're never going to convince someone and sit down and reason over the scriptures. Of course we will. As soon as there's engagement and interaction and questions, we'll sit down, and there's no problem with sitting down or having someone else come help you and sit down and reason over the Bible with them. That'd be a great thing to happen, right? Praise God for that. But initially, we have all this fear about, I don't know what to say, I don't have the answers to the questions, and Jesus' first mission with his people following him, watching him, replicating what he does, is saying, don't try and have all the answers. That's not what Jesus is saying here. Because if you look further after Matthew 10, the apostles do not have all the answers. Do we go to 40 or 45?
Somewhere between 40 and 45.
All right, we'll find out. We'll go 40 and 45.
I think it's 40.
We're saying it's 40.
That's not right.
All right.
I think it's
If you're on Facebook, we're talking about what time class ends. Sorry for wasting your time. Okay, so you're saying just proclaim. This isn't saying convince me. But the first step is proclaiming gospel truths. So here's an odd question. And we're going to do a little discussion group. You're going to get really short time. Everyone pictures the idea of coming up and someone's talking, and you awkwardly come in and be like, have you heard about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? And people are like, get out of here. Like, I don't want to hear about that. It feels really awkward. It feels unnatural. But when you hear a conversation where someone might bring up church, or a conversation where it's something serious, like their kid or their grandparents or whatnot are sick or dying, or it might be something where they're talking about what they did that might have been good or bad on the weekend. What are some easy ways that we can insert something in our life without it feeling like that we're just shoving it down their throat? So discuss amongst yourselves, what's a sentence or two that doesn't seem, pushy or whatnot, where it's just the idea where I come up to someone and I say, oh yeah, this weekend, this is a real simple one, this weekend I was at church. Why? Well, because I'm a Christian and Jesus Christ died for me. Now, that sounds really simple, and you're like, that's not what they're doing. Well, that would be proclaiming and at least dropping some kind of seed. So discuss for 30 seconds a casual sentence or two that you could say to someone on any circumstance that doesn't just necessarily sound super awkward. Seem like everyone... And you can talk louder than what you are right now. What's an easy sentence or two? All right, what's quick ideas? I just heard a decent one. Any ideas over here? Something that's an easy sentence or two to drop in. What do you got over here? Not easy.
Came up with nothing.
I guess so. I came up with nothing. Stump them all. Section 1, you're getting skipped. You're being shunned. Section 2. Offering to pray. Okay? All right, so I've got offer to pray. We talked about the idea of whatever topical situation, political or social, whatever, integrating that back into the biblical story and giving a narrative. Any one last thought?
One of the things we talked about was God, honor, glory. Okay.
So thanking God, giving God glory in casual conversation. One last thought, Tom? An offering when it comes about just to come to church. Sure, come into worship services. So I'm sure we got a lot of other ideas. Those are all real basic. The idea is to just make it natural and drop in a conversation. Of course, we're going to dive in deeper into that our next class. I thought I had till 45. That is incorrect. So Matthew 10:8, the proclamation of the kingdom should also be demonstrated. This last thought and idea I have here is they're performing miracles, for them in that day and age, and that need was to demonstrate the kingdom of heaven was there. For us, Titus 2:1-10, I'll focus just on verse 10. He goes through all these lists from older people training the younger. And the reason why, Paul says that we should be showing all good faith so that in everything we may adorn the doctrine. So it's speaking and doing. And they can't be both on just by itself. So we're going to keep talking about Jesus' living when we come back on Sunday and kind of more specify into the how this can look like when it comes to evangelism. I'm going to close right there. I got more of my notes at 7:40. Thank you all for participating.